Jake Miller was having the worst day of his life, and it wasn't even lunchtime yet. He sat in the third row of Mrs. Patterson's biology class, trying not to think about the pop quiz she'd just announced. His nose had been itching all morning. Probably those stupid flowers someone brought in for the science project. Jake hated spring allergies. They made his eyes water and his nose run, and right now, he could feel a massive sneeze building up. He grabbed a tissue from his backpack just as the tickle in his nose became unbearable. The sneeze hit him like a freight train. But instead of the normal achoo, something else came out. Fire. Actual fire. A bright orange jet of flame shot from Jake's nostrils, crossing his desk and hitting the wall behind Mrs. Patterson. The plastic pencil holder on his desk melted instantly. His notebook caught fire. The poster about the water cycle curled up and turned black. For a second, nobody moved. Everyone just stared. Then someone screamed. Mrs. Patterson grabbed the fire extinguisher while kids scrambled out of their seats. The fire alarm started blaring, so loud it hurt Jake's ears. Water sprinklers kicked in, soaking everyone. Through it all, Jake just sat there, frozen, staring at his hands. What just happened? Did he really just breathe fire like some kind of dragon? The evacuation was chaos. 1,200 kids poured out of Riverside Middle School onto the parking lot. Teachers tried to keep everyone calm, but whispers spread fast. That weird kid Jake Miller just set his classroom on fire. With his face. By sneezing. Jake's best friend Tyler found him in the crowd. Dude, what the hell was that? I don't know, Jake whispered. His hands were shaking. I just sneezed and then there was fire. Real fire, Tyler. From my nose. That's impossible. I know it's impossible. But I saw it. Everyone saw it. Principal Hendricks was talking to the fire department when the sky changed. It got darker, like clouds were rolling in, but there were no clouds. Just shadows. Big shadows. Then Jake heard it. A sound like thunder, but rhythmic. Powerful. Getting closer. Something massive landed on the football field. Then another. And another. They were dragons. Real, actual dragons. The big one in front was silver, gleaming in the sunlight like polished metal. Its eyes were golden and ancient. Behind it were dragons of different colors, red and blue and bronze, each one the size of a bus. Their wings blocked out the sun as they folded against their bodies. People started running. Parents who'd arrived to pick up their kids were screaming. Teachers herded students toward the street. But Jake couldn't move. He felt like those golden eyes were looking right through the crowd, searching for something. For him. The silver dragon's voice boomed across the parking lot, speaking perfect English. We seek the kindled one. The human child who carries dragon fire within. Present him to us now. Police cars screeched into the parking lot, sirens wailing. Officers shouted for everyone to get back, but what were they supposed to do against dragons? Shoot them? The creatures looked like they'd been alive since before America was even discovered. This is not a threat, the silver dragon continued, its voice somehow gentle despite its power. This is cosmic law, older than your civilization. A human has awakened with our fire. We must guide him, or catastrophe will follow. Jake felt his mom's hands on his shoulders. She'd arrived minutes before with his dad. Both of them looked terrified. Stay quiet, his mom whispered. Don't say anything. But it was too late. One of the smaller dragons, a red one with scales like rubies, had turned its head toward them. It sniffed the air, then rumbled something in a language that sounded like avalanches and earthquakes. The silver dragon's eyes locked onto Jake. There. The boy. We sensed the flame within him. Jake's dad stepped in front of him. Tom Miller had been a Marine, and he wasn't about to let dragons take his son without a fight. He's 12 years old. You're not taking him anywhere. We do not wish to take him against his will, the silver dragon said. Its voice was surprisingly patient. But he must be trained. A human with dragon fire who does not understand his power is a danger to everyone around him. He could burn down cities in his sleep. He could incinerate everyone he loves. Jake's mom, Lisa, was already on her phone, calling her law firm. She was one of the best civil rights attorneys in the state, and she wasn't about to let ancient monsters decide her son's fate. You can't just claim a human child, she said, her voice strong despite her fear. We have laws. Courts. Rights. The silver dragon made a sound that might have been a sigh. Your laws are days old compared to ours. But we are not barbarians. We will negotiate. I am Varthemes, speaker for the Dragon Council. We have waited centuries for another kindled one to awaken. The boy's safety, and yours, depends on what happens next. More dragons were landing now. The football field was full of them. News helicopters circled overhead. This wasn't just a school incident anymore. This was first contact with a species humanity didn't know existed. And somehow, Jake Miller was right in the middle of it. By the next morning, Jake's house was surrounded. Not just by dragons, but by everyone. News vans lined the street. Military vehicles blocked both ends of the road. Helicopters circled overhead. And on the lawn, in the park across the street, even perched on the neighborhood church, dragons waited. 6 different groups of them. Each one claiming Jake belonged to them. Jake watched from his bedroom window, still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. He hadn't slept. How could he? Every time he closed his eyes, he saw fire coming out of his nose. And now there were dragons camped outside his house like it was some kind of medieval siege. His mom was downstairs with lawyers. Lots of lawyers. His dad was in the kitchen with people from the Pentagon. Jake could hear them arguing about jurisdiction, international law, rights of mythical creatures. None of it made sense. Tyler had texted him about 50 times. So had half the kids from school. Jake's phone kept buzzing with messages. Some people thought he was cool. Others thought he was a freak. A few thought the whole thing was an elaborate prank for social media. Jake wished it was a prank. A knock on his door made him jump. His dad came in, looking exhausted. "You okay, buddy?" "Not really." Jake turned from the window. "Dad, what's going to happen to me?" Tom sat on the edge of the bed. "Your mom and I aren't letting anyone take you. I don't care if they're dragons or the president himself. But what if they're right? What if I am dangerous?" His dad was quiet for a moment. "Then we'll figure it out. Together. As a family." Another dragon landed in the street. This one was deep red, its scales looking like they were made of literal fire. Car alarms started going off from the impact. Downstairs, someone rang the doorbell. Jake heard his mom answer it. Then he heard a voice that made the walls vibrate. Dragons didn't need to come inside to be heard. "We must speak with the boy," a deep voice rumbled. "The Dragon Council has decreed a meeting. All 6 clans have claimed him. This has never happened before." Jake and his dad went downstairs. In the living room, his mom stood with her arms crossed, facing the open front door. On the lawn stood Varthemes, the silver dragon from yesterday. Next to him was the red dragon, and behind them, Jake could see others. A blue one that looked like it was made of ice. A green one covered in moss and leaves. A white one that seemed to glow. A bronze one with scars across its snout. 6 clans, Varthemes said, his golden eyes fixed on Jake. In 5,000 years of kindled ones appearing among humans, never has one been claimed by more than 2 clans. You, Jake Miller, are unique. The red dragon spoke next, her voice like crackling flames. "I am Pyrith of the Red Flame clan. Your fire burns within you, boy. That makes you ours by ancient right. Fire breathers belong to flame." "Nonsense," the blue dragon interrupted, his voice cold and sharp. "I am Glacius of the Frostmind clan. The boy solved problems in his school that require intelligence beyond normal humans. His mind is touched by dragon wisdom. He belongs with us." The green dragon rustled, leaves falling from her scales. "I am Verdana of the Earthroot clan. The boy's connection to your world's nature is strong. We sense it. He carries the patience of growing things." They kept going, each clan leader explaining why Jake was theirs. The white dragon talked about prophecies and stars aligning. The bronze dragon mentioned his courage in facing them without running. Each one had a reason, and each one seemed absolutely convinced they were right. Jake's head was spinning. "I don't understand. How can I belong to all of you?" Varthemes stepped closer, his massive head lowering to look Jake in the eye. "That is what we must discover. The Dragon Council has agreed to one thing: you must undergo the trials of recognition. Ancient tests that will reveal your true nature. Only then will we know which clan you truly belong to." "And if we refuse?" Lisa said sharply. "Then the boy remains untrained," Pyrith said. "And eventually, his power will manifest uncontrollably. Perhaps he sneezes fire in his sleep and burns down his home. Perhaps he dreams and his emotions set fire to his school. Perhaps he gets angry at a bully and incinerates them by accident." Jake felt sick. That could really happen. "It has happened," the bronze dragon said quietly. "Long ago, when a kindled one was left untrained. 3,000 humans died in the fire before we could stop it. The boy himself died too, consumed by flames he couldn't control. We do not tell you this to frighten you. We tell you this so you understand the stakes. The room went silent. Jake looked at his parents. His mom's expression was hard to read, but he could see the fear in her eyes. His dad looked like he wanted to punch something, but knew he couldn't punch a dragon. What are these trials? Tom asked. Tests of elemental affinity, Varthemes explained. Jake would travel to the dragon territories, our realm that exists alongside yours but hidden for millennia. There, he would face challenges that reveal his connection to fire, ice, earth, sky, mind, and spirit. We would know definitively which clan he belongs to. And humans can come with him? Lisa asked. Observers will be permitted. Your government has already been contacted. A United Nations task force is being assembled. They will accompany Jake to ensure his safety and humanity's interests. Jake's phone buzzed. Another text from Tyler. Dude, are you gonna go to Dragon World? That's so cool. But it didn't feel cool. It felt terrifying. Jake was 12. He liked video games and basketball and pizza. He didn't want to be special or unique or important. He just wanted to be normal. Do I have a choice? He asked quietly. Varthemes tilted his head. Always, young one. But understand, choosing not to learn is also a choice, one with consequences. We do not wish to force you. But we also cannot ignore what you are. The green dragon, Vedana, spoke more gently than the others. Previous kindled ones found great purpose in their gifts. They became bridges between our species. They prevented wars. They healed ancient wounds. They were neither fully human nor fully dragon, but something beautiful in between. Jake thought about the fire yesterday. How it had felt both foreign and natural, like discovering he had a third arm he never knew about. How terrifying it was. How amazing it was. When would these trials happen? He asked. 3 days, Varthemes said. That gives your family time to prepare, and gives our council time to arrange the ceremonies. His mom stepped forward. And you swear no harm will come to him? All 6 dragon leaders bowed their heads in unison. On our ancient honor, Varthemes said. The boy will be protected as if he were our own hatchling. You have our oath. Jake looked at his parents, then back at the dragons. Somewhere in the distance, he heard sirens. More military probably. Or more news crews. His quiet life in suburban America was gone. The only question now was what came next. The portal opened in Jake's backyard 3 days later, and it looked like someone had torn a hole in reality itself. One moment there was just grass and his dad's barbecue grill. The next, the air shimmered and split open, revealing a swirling tunnel of colors Jake didn't have names for. Through it, he could see mountains that touched the clouds and skies filled with flying shapes. The dragon territories. Jake stood with his parents, wearing a backpack like he was going to summer camp instead of another dimension. His mom had packed snacks, water bottles, and his inhaler, even though he told her 3 times he probably wouldn't need an inhaler in Dragonland. She'd also packed his phone, though nobody knew if it would even work there. Behind them stood the UN task force. 12 people from different countries, all wearing matching blue uniforms and looking way more nervous than they were trying to appear. Their leader, a woman named Colonel Hayes from the US Air Force, had a hand on her sidearm like it would do anything against dragons. Remember, his mom said for the 100th time, gripping his shoulders. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You're our son first, whatever else you might be second. His dad pulled him into a tight hug. Be smart. Be safe. And if anything feels wrong, you tell us immediately. I will, Jake promised, though his voice shook a little. Varthemes emerged from the portal, his silver scales gleaming. It is time. The council awaits. Jake took a deep breath and stepped through the portal. The sensation was like walking through a waterfall, cold and tingly and disorienting. Then his feet hit solid ground on the other side, and he stumbled forward onto stone that felt older than anything he'd ever touched. The dragon territories were incredible. Mountains stretched in every direction, some covered in snow, others belching smoke and lava. Crystalline towers rose from valleys filled with forests that glowed with bioluminescent plants. Rivers of actual liquid fire flowed through channels carved in black rock. In the sky, hundreds of dragons flew in formations, their wings catching light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Holy crap, Tyler would have said. Jake wished his friend could see this. The human observers came through behind him, and he heard Colonel Hayes swear under her breath. Even his mom, who never seemed impressed by anything, stood staring with her mouth open. Welcome to our realm, Varthemes said. Come. The fire halls await. They walked through a canyon where the walls pulsed with heat. Dragons watched from ledges above, their eyes tracking Jake's every move. Some whispered to each other in their rumbling language. Others just stared. The fire holes were exactly what they sounded like. A massive cavern filled with flames that burned different colors, blue and green and purple and white. The heat was intense, like standing too close to an oven times 100. Pyrith, the red dragon, waited inside. Your first trial, young kindled one. Walk through the flames. They will not harm you if the fire recognizes you as kin. If not. She didn't finish that sentence. If not, what? Jake's dad demanded. Then we will pull him out before serious injury occurs, Vathimi said calmly. No kindled one has ever been burned by this trial. But there is always a first time. Absolutely not, his mom started, but Jake was already walking forward. He didn't know why. Maybe it was the way the flames seemed to call to him. Maybe it was because he'd already sneezed fire, so regular fire didn't seem that scary anymore. Maybe he just wanted to get this over with. The flames felt warm. Not burning, just warm, like bathwater. Jake walked deeper into the inferno, and the fires parted around him like they were welcoming him home. Then something changed. The flames closest to him started turning blue, the same blue his sneeze fire had been. Behind him, he heard dragons making surprised noises. Impossible, Pyrith whispered. Azure flame. That has only appeared once in our entire history. Jake emerged on the other side of the fire holes, completely unburned. His clothes weren't even singed. But now blue flames danced along his fingertips, harmless and beautiful. What does this mean? Colonel Hayes asked. It means he is more than we expected, Vathimi said quietly. The next trial was in the mine spires, crystalline towers that hummed with energy. Inside, Jake faced a puzzle that looked like it had been designed by aliens on acid. Floating geometric shapes, symbols that hurt to look at, patterns that made no sense. A blue-scaled dragon named Glacius explained, dragon scholars have studied this puzzle for 3 centuries. Solve what you can. Jake stared at it for maybe 5 minutes. Then he did something that made the dragons gasp. He stopped trying to solve it the way they expected. Instead, he looked at the negative space between the shapes, the patterns they made by not being there. It's not about the shapes, he said. It's about what's missing. He rearranged the puzzle using human logic, thinking sideways instead of straight. The shapes clicked into place, and the entire tower chimed like a massive bell. Glacius looked stunned. He solved it. In minutes. Using methods we never considered. Human thinking, Vathimi said, sounding pleased. This is why the kindled ones are precious. The sky fields were next, and they were brutal. Jake had to cross a canyon with no bridge, just air and a 1,000-foot drop. Dragons flew it easily. Humans couldn't. The white dragon, Luminara, expected him to fail this one. But Jake surprised everyone again. He couldn't fly, but he refused to give up. He studied the canyon, noticed ledges and outcroppings, and started climbing. It took him 2 hours, and his hands were bleeding by the end, but he made it across using pure determination and rock climbing skills he'd learned at summer camp. The aerial dragons circled above him, calling out in what sounded like approval. When he finally reached the other side, several of them landed and bowed their heads to him. Wingless, yet he conquered the sky through will alone, one of them said. This is worthy of greater respect than simple flight. By the time the trials ended, Jake was exhausted, bruised, and confused. He'd passed every test, but not in the ways the dragons expected. The blue fire, the sideways thinking, the determination without wings. Each trial had revealed something different about him. The Dragon Council gathered in a massive amphitheater carved from a mountainside. Thousands of dragons filled the seats, and Jake stood in the center with his parents and the UN observers. Vathimi spoke to the assembled dragons, his voice carrying across the space. The trials are complete. The boy has been tested. And what we discovered changes everything. He turned to look at Jake. You do not belong to one clan. You do not even belong to 2 or 3. Your spark resonates with every domain. Fire, mind, earth, sky, spirit, and heart. This has never occurred in recorded history. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some dragons sounded excited. Others sounded afraid. According to our oldest texts, Vathimis continued, such a being is called a convergence. Not a dragon in human form, but something else entirely. A bridge. A unifier. Someone who could potentially bring together what has been divided. Jake's mom grabbed his hand. What does that mean for him? It means, a deep voice said from the shadows, that he is either our salvation or our doom. A massive bronze dragon emerged, bigger and scarier than any Jake had seen. His scales were covered in scars, and his eyes burned with something that looked like anger. I am Corthax, the dragon said. And I say this child is a threat we cannot ignore. The atmosphere in the amphitheater changed instantly. Jake felt his mom pull him closer. His dad stepped forward protectively. The UN observers reached for weapons they knew wouldn't help. The trials were over. But Jake's real problems were just beginning. Corthax's words hung in the air like a threat, and Jake felt every dragon in the amphitheater turn to look at him. Some with curiosity. Others with something that looked a lot like fear. Humans are short-lived and impulsive, Corthax continued, his scarred bronze scales gleaming in the strange light. They make wars over resources, over beliefs, over insults. And now you want to give one of them power over dragon emotions? Over our very nature? This is madness. Varthemi stepped forward. The trials have spoken. The boy is a convergence. This is not a choice we make, it simply is. Then we unmake it, Corthax growled. Strip him of the spark. Return him to his kind before he becomes a weapon they use against us. Jake's legs felt weak. Strip him of the spark? Could they even do that? And would it hurt? His mom's voice cut through the tension. You will not touch my son. Several dragons turned to look at her. Lisa Miller stood there, 5'4", weighing maybe 130 pounds, staring down creatures that could swallow her whole. But she didn't back down. He's a child, she said. He didn't ask for any of this. And you don't get to punish him for something he didn't choose. Corthax made a sound that might have been a laugh. Brave words from prey. But this is not a human court, lawyer. This is dragon law, and it has kept us alive for 50,000 years. Your law also brought him here, Jake's dad said, stepping up beside his wife. You came to our world. You demanded these trials. He passed every single one. You don't get to change the rules now because you don't like the results. More murmurs from the assembled dragons. Some seemed to agree. Others looked angry that humans dared speak to them this way. The Dragon Council conferred among themselves, their voices too low for Jake to hear. Finally, Varthemis turned back to address everyone. Corthax's concerns are noted. But the boy has done nothing to warrant punishment. He will remain here under our protection while the council decides his future. The session is adjourned. Dragons began filing out of the amphitheater. Corthax left last, his eyes fixed on Jake the entire time. It wasn't a look of hatred exactly, more like a general sizing up a potential enemy. Jake felt sick to his stomach. They were taken to a sanctuary, a beautiful building carved into a cliffside with rooms for the humans and perches for the dragons who'd be guarding them. It had beds, running water somehow, and windows that looked out over impossible vistas. But it felt like a prison. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Corthax's words. Was he really dangerous? What if the bronze dragon was right? What if this power inside him was something that would hurt people? Around midnight, he heard his parents talking in the next room. We should never have agreed to this, his mom was saying. We didn't have a choice. You heard what they said about untrained kindled ones. There's always a choice, Tom. We could have run. Hidden. Something. From dragons? Lisa, be realistic. Their voices dropped too low to hear after that. Jake pulled his pillow over his head and tried not to cry. He was 12 years old. He should be worrying about homework and video games, not whether ancient dragons thought he was too dangerous to live. The attack came 3 nights later. Jake woke to the sound of breaking stone. His room shook like an earthquake had hit. Through the window, he saw dragons fighting dragons, flames lighting up the night sky. His door burst open. Colonel Hayes stood there with a rifle. Get up. We're under attack. Jake stumbled out of bed just as part of the wall exploded inward. A bronze dragon, one of Corthax's followers, lunged through the opening. Its claws reached for Jake, and he knew with absolute certainty that it meant to kill him. His dad tackled him sideways just as the claws raked the air where he'd been standing. His mom was screaming. The UN observers were firing weapons that just bounced off dragon scales. The bronze dragon roared and lunged again. Jake felt something inside him ignite, that same feeling from when he'd sneezed in biology class, but stronger. Hotter. More urgent. Fire erupted from his hands. But it wasn't normal fire. It wasn't even the blue fire from the trials. This flame was white gold, and when it hit the attacking dragon, something impossible happened. The dragon stopped. just froze in place, its rage melting away. Its eyes went wide, confused, and then something that looked like peace washed over its features. The dragon sat down heavily, making a sound almost like a whimper. What? Colonel Hayes lowered her rifle, staring. More of Korthax's followers were breaking through the sanctuary walls. Jake didn't think, he just reacted. The white gold flames poured out of him, touching each attacking dragon. And one by one, they stopped fighting. Their aggression dissolved. Some of them looked around like they'd just woken from a nightmare. Varthemes arrived with loyal dragons right behind him. They'd been ready to fight, but there was no fight left. The attackers just sat there, docile and confused. Empathy flame, Varthemes breathed. By the ancient stars, the boy wields empathy flame. What does that mean? Jake's mom demanded, holding her son close. The silver dragon looked shaken, something Jake hadn't seen before. It means he can affect dragon emotions directly. Our feelings are ancient, fundamental, unchanged for millennia. No force in existence has ever been able to alter what a dragon feels. Until now. One of the bronze dragons who'd attacked spoke up, his voice small and ashamed. I don't understand. I was so angry. So certain the boy was a threat. But now, I feel nothing but shame for my actions. What did he do to me? He showed you peace, Varthemes said quietly. He stripped away your rage and left only your true self. Korthax himself arrived moments later, surveying the scene. When he saw his followers sitting peacefully among their former enemies, his expression was unreadable. You see now, he said to the council members who'd gathered. The boy can control us. Make us feel what he wishes. This is exactly what I warned against. I didn't control anyone. Jake protested, still shaking from the adrenaline. I was just defending myself. I didn't mean to do whatever that was. Intention doesn't matter, Korthax said. Power matters. And you have power over dragonkind that we cannot defend against. But something else was happening. News from Earth was coming through the portal. Other human children had started showing abilities. A girl in Tokyo could move water without touching it. A boy in Brazil made plants grow just by looking at them. A teenager in Egypt could somehow sense what people were feeling from miles away. The UN observers were getting frantic reports. Governments were panicking. Scientists couldn't explain it. Religious leaders were calling it everything from divine intervention to the end times. Your presence here has awakened something in humanity, Glacius, the ice dragon, said. The barrier between our worlds was already thin when the boy's spark ignited. But bringing him here, performing the trials, it's torn that barrier further. Human potential is spilling through. Jake felt the weight of everyone's stares. Not just the dragons now, but his own people too. Colonel Hayes looked at him differently. Even some of the UN observers had taken a step back. I didn't mean to, Jake said weakly. I didn't ask for any of this. His mom pulled him into a fierce hug. None of this is your fault. You hear me? None of it. But Jake wasn't so sure. The attacking dragons had come for him because they thought he was dangerous. Kids on Earth were developing powers because of him. Everything was changing, and he was the reason why. Varthemes addressed the assembled dragons and humans. Emergency Council session. Now. We must decide what to do before this situation escalates further. As they were led back to the amphitheater, Jake caught sight of himself in a reflective crystal surface. His eyes were glowing faintly with that same white gold light. The fire inside him hadn't gone away. If anything, it felt stronger now. More awake. And Jake realized with growing dread that Korthax might have been right all along. Not about what should be done, but about what Jake was. A threat. Not because he wanted to be, but because he couldn't help it. The emergency council session lasted 3 days, and with every passing hour, things on Earth got worse. Jake watched the news feeds on a tablet Colonel Hayes had managed to get working. A kid in London had accidentally frozen an entire city block. A teenager in Mexico City had somehow made every electronic device in a 10-mile radius go haywire just by getting angry. A little girl in Sydney had made flowers grow through concrete, cracking open a highway. None of them knew how to control it. Just like Jake hadn't known how to control his fire. Governments were demanding answers. The UN wanted Jake returned immediately. Some countries were calling for the dragon territories to be sealed off permanently. Others wanted access to dragon knowledge to help the affected children. A few were already talking about weaponizing these new abilities. Jake sat in his room at the sanctuary, feeling like the weight of 2 worlds was crushing him. His parents tried to comfort him, but what could they say? This was his fault. Not intentionally, but the result was the same. A knock on his door made him look up. It wasn't his parents or Colonel Hayes. It was a dragon he'd never seen before, ancient and massive, with scales that seemed to shift between colors like oil on water. "I am Zephyranus," the dragon said, his voice impossibly old and deep. "I have lived for 52,000 years. I witnessed the dawn of your species. And I know what you are, Jake Miller." Jake's parents appeared in the doorway, protective, but the ancient dragon raised a claw peacefully. "I mean no harm. But the boy deserves truth before he makes his choice." "What choice?" Jake asked. Zephyranus settled his massive bulk outside the window, his head level with Jake's room. "The choice of what happens next. But first, you must understand what kindled ones truly are." The ancient dragon's eyes glowed softly. "Long ago, when humans were young and dragons were everywhere, we made a pact. Your ancestors were clever but fragile, brilliant but brief. We offered them a gift, the spark of greater consciousness. Language. Art. Abstract thought. The ability to dream of what could be." Jake's dad frowned. "You're saying dragons made humans intelligent?" "We helped awaken what was already there," Zephyranus corrected. "In exchange, your ancestors agreed that occasionally, that spark would manifest physically. A human would be born carrying literal fire, a reminder of the bond between our species. Those children would return to us, learning both worlds, becoming bridges. But we separated," Jake said, understanding dawning. "Humans and dragons went different ways." "Yes. Your kind chose change, adaptation, rapid growth. We chose tradition, stability, permanence. Both paths had merit. But the separation wounded both species more than either admits." Zephyranus shifted, his ancient eyes sad. "Dragons became isolated, proud, rigid. We lost the fresh perspective humans brought. You became lonely, believing yourselves alone in the universe, forgetting the magic that once was. The kindled ones became rarer as the worlds drifted apart." Until Jake sneezed fire in biology class, his mom said. "Until the barrier between worlds grew thin enough for the spark to manifest again, yes. And not just manifest, but burn brighter than it has in millennia. Jake is not becoming a dragon. He is remembering what humans and dragons were always meant to be together. Partners." The ancient dragon looked directly at Jake. "You are not a threat, young one. You are a beacon. Your empathy flame doesn't control dragons, it reminds us of what we've forgotten. Peace. Connection. The feelings we buried under centuries of isolation." "But the other kids," Jake said. "The ones developing powers on Earth. I caused that." "You awakened it," Zephyranus corrected. "But it was always there, dormant. Humanity's potential, sleeping until the barrier between our worlds thinned. Those children are not accidents. They are your species remembering what it once was." Colonel Hayes had joined them in the doorway. "So what happens now? Our governments want answers. Your council is divided. And there are kids all over Earth who need help controlling abilities they don't understand." Zephyranus turned his gaze to her. "That depends on young Jake. And the choice he makes." "What choice?" Jake asked again. "Whether to keep our worlds separate, or to bring them back together." The weight of that statement settled over the room like a physical thing. Jake felt his heart hammering. How could he make a decision like that? He was 12 years old. "The council will abide by your choice," Zephyranus continued. "You are the convergence. The first in recorded history. If you say the world should remain apart, we will strengthen the barriers, suppress the awakening in human children, and you can return to your normal life. Eventually, your spark will fade. The other children's abilities will diminish. Everything will return to how it was. And if I choose the other option?" Jake's voice was barely a whisper. "Then we end the separation. Dragons and humans will know each other exists. We will help train those with awakened abilities. Share knowledge. Learn from each other. Your world will change forever, Jake. There will be fear, conflict, adjustment. Not everyone will accept it. But there will also be wonder, growth, possibility." Jake looked at his parents. His mom had tears in her eyes. His dad looked like he wanted to punch ancient cosmic forces but knew he couldn't. "It's your choice, buddy," his dad said quietly. "Whatever you decide, we support you. But think carefully," his mom added. "Both options have consequences." Jake thought about his normal life. Going to school, hanging out with Tyler, playing video games. No dragons. No pressure. No weight of two worlds on his shoulders. Then he thought about the girl in London who'd frozen a city block. The kid in Brazil making plants grow wild. All those children who were scared and confused, just like he'd been when he sneezed fire. They needed help. They needed to understand what they were. And maybe, just maybe, humanity needed to remember it wasn't alone in the universe. I want to talk to the council, Jake said. All of them. Including Corthax. 3 hours later, Jake stood in the amphitheater again. Every dragon in the territory seemed to be there. His parents stood beside him. The UN observers watched from a safe distance. And on Earth, through magical crystals that somehow transmitted across dimensions, world leaders watched on screens. This wasn't just a speech to dragons anymore. This was humanity's first real contact with another intelligent species. Jake's hands were shaking, but he started talking anyway. I'm just a kid, he said, his voice amplified somehow to reach everyone. A few days ago, my biggest problem was a math test. Now I'm supposed to decide the fate of 2 entire species. That's insane. Some dragons rumbled in what might have been agreement. But I've been thinking about what Zephyranus said. About how lonely both our species have been. And I think he's right. Humans feel alone. We look at the stars and wonder if there's anyone else out there. We fight each other over stupid things because we forget we're all connected. He turned to look at Corthax, the bronze dragon who'd wanted him stripped of his power. And dragons, you've been isolated too. So focused on tradition that you've stopped growing. So proud of your strength that you forgot why strength matters in the first place. Corthax's eyes narrowed, but he didn't interrupt. I can't promise this will be easy, Jake continued. If we bring our worlds together, there will be problems. Humans who fear dragons. Dragons who don't trust humans. People who'll try to use this for power or war or profit. But there will also be amazing things. Kids like me learning from teachers who've lived for thousands of years. Dragons seeing the universe through human eyes, fresh and new. Both of us being less alone. Jake felt the white gold fire stirring inside him, not aggressive, just present. Warm. I vote we end the separation. Let our worlds meet. Help the kids who are awakening. Share knowledge. Figure this out together. Because I think that's what we were always supposed to do. The amphitheater was silent for a long moment. Then Vathemes spoke. The convergence has chosen. Council, we must vote. It wasn't unanimous. Some dragons voted against it. Some abstained. But the majority voted yes. The separation would end. Dragons and humans would reconnect after thousands of years apart. Corthax approached Jake afterward, his scarred face unreadable. For a moment, Jake thought the bronze dragon might attack again. Instead, he bowed his head slightly. You have courage, boy. Perhaps more than wisdom, but courage nonetheless. I still have my doubts. But I will give your choice a chance. It was the closest thing to approval Jake was going to get, and honestly, it felt like a victory. The next week was chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Portals opened in major cities around the world. Dragon ambassadors arrived, carefully selected for their patience and diplomatic skills. Humans who developed abilities were brought to training centers where both human teachers and dragon mentors helped them understand their gifts. Jake's school, Riverside Middle, became the first dragon-human cultural exchange center. It was weird walking into biology class and seeing Vathemes teaching an elective course on interspecies history in the room next door. Mrs. Patterson was thrilled, constantly asking the dragons questions about their biology. Tyler thought it was the coolest thing ever. Dude, you literally changed the world by sneezing. That's the most epic thing anyone has ever done. Not everyone was happy. Protests happened. Some religious groups called it the end times. Some governments tried to restrict dragon access. There were incidents, fights, misunderstandings. But there were also breakthroughs. A dragon geologist helped human scientists predict earthquakes with incredible accuracy. A human programmer taught dragons about the internet, and they were fascinated. Medical knowledge was shared that saved lives on both sides. Jake still went to 7th grade. Still did homework and played basketball and argued with his parents about screen time. But now he also met weekly with other kindled children, helping them understand their abilities. He studied with dragon mentors who taught him to control his empathy flame, to use it intentionally rather than accidentally. 6 months after his sneeze in biology class, Jake sat on his roof at night, looking at the stars. A shadow passed overhead, and Vathemes landed beside him, careful not to damage the shingles. How are you feeling, young convergence? Tired, Jake admitted. But good, I think. This is all still really weird. Change always is. But you chose well, Jake Miller. Both our species are better for your courage. Jake smiled. His sneeze hadn't set the world on fire. It had lit something better. A beacon bringing two lonely species back together. And honestly, that was pretty cool. Even if he still had to finish his math homework.